Well, welcome to the new museum, everybody. I'm Andrew Edlin. I'm the owner of the Outsider Art Fair, and we have a very exciting week in front of us. I would like to thank the new museum and Massimiliano Gioni for hosting us again at this beautiful facility. And I also want to thank our fair staff, particularly Allison Galgiani, who has really done the heavy lifting coordinating this event. As you may or may not know, the Outsider Art Fair is opening on Thursday night at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be running through Sunday at the Metropolitan Pavilion on 18th Street between 6th and 7th Avenues, and we hope you're going to show up. Okay, I'm going to introduce the panelists and our moderator. Lonnie Holley is here. I first met him about 10 years ago on an unforgettable field trip with Bill Arning to Alabama. And Lonnie is devoted, in his own words, to improvisational creativity. At 29, he began making art using the discarded stone linings from industrial steel molds to make sandstone carvings, which he soon followed with works assembled almost entirely from found materials. Today, Lonnie lives in Atlanta, where he continues to create pieces in diverse media that draw upon his personal history and celebrate the South's vast industrial heritage. Lonnie's work most recently appeared in major exhibitions like History Refused to Die at the Metropolitan Museum, Outliers in American Vanguard Art at the National Gallery of Art, which then traveled to the High and LACMA. Other recent exhibits include Mass Mocha, the De Young, James Fuentes, and he's in a group show at Marlborough right now. In recent years, and very currently, Lonnie has really been an incredible touring musician. He's really a rock star now, too. I mean, that's just the way it is. And he's been performing all over the world. We're really happy to have him here. He's represented by James Fuentes right here in the neighborhood. Laura Hoptman has been a curator of contemporary art and a leading participant in the international art conversation for 3 decades. She's now the executive director at the Drawing Center after 8 years as a curator in the Department of Painting and Sculpture at the Museum of Modern Art, where she began her career in the 90s as a curator with a specialty in drawing. Laura has organized many landmark exhibitions, including her inaugural show currently at the Drawing Center, The Pencil is a Key, Drawings by Incarcerated Artists. A poignant exhibition of historical and contemporary drawing, exploring the persistence of human creativity and the necessity of drawing under the most inhumane circumstances. Additional exhibitions of note include retrospectives of the work of Yayoi Kusama, Isa Genskin, Henry Taylor, Bruce Conner, and Elizabeth Payton, as well as the 54th Carnegie International at the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. Next up at the Drawing Center is a solo show for the magnificent Chinese self-taught artist Gua Fengyi, To See at a Distance, which will open on February 20th. Marilyn Minter has been the subject of numerous solo exhibitions, including the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art in 2005, the Center for Contemporary Art in Cincinnati in 2009, Le Conservera Centro de Arte Contemporáneo, I botched that, in Spain in 2009, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Cleveland in 2010. In 2015, Minter's retrospective Pretty Dirty opened at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston and traveled to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Denver, the Orange County Museum of Art, and finally to the Brooklyn Museum in November 2016. Minter lives and works in New York and is represented by Salon 94, New York, and Reagan Projects, Los Angeles, and Baldwin Gallery, Aspen. Our moderator, Bill Arning. Bill is a contemporary art advisor, curator, and critic based in Houston. From 2009 to 2018, he was the director of the Contemporary Arts Museum Houston, where he organized solo exhibitions for Mark Flood, Melanie Smith, Matthew Day Jackson, and the late Stan Vanderbeek. In 2015, along with curator Elisa Author and the Museum of Contemporary Art Denver, he co-organized the survey show Marilyn Minter, Pretty Dirty. Recent commercial gallery exhibitions include Stonewall 50/50 at 1969 Gallery, Paulina Peavy Lacamo, They Call Us Identified at Andrew Edlin Gallery, New York, and Dirty Words, Mark Flood, Sam Jablin at Mindy Solomon Gallery in Miami. From 1985 to 1996, Arning was the director of White Columns in New York, where he organized groundbreaking first solo shows for John Curran, Marilyn Minter, Andres Serrano, Richard Phillips, Katie Noland, and Jim Hodges. His writing has appeared in Artforum, Apollo, Art in America, Out, Gulf Coast, and Parquet. He's contributed to many international publications, including exhibition catalogs on Keith Haring, Christian Jankowski, and Donald Moffat. He writes a monthly column on LGBTQ art issues for Outsmart magazine, a gay magazine covering Houston, Texas. Please welcome Bill Arning.
Hi, I want to thank Andrew and the Outsider Art Fair for inviting me to think about this topic for a while. And to organize this group of people that are just marvelous speakers and marvelous artists and curators. In my years of white columns, I gave a lot of people first shows, and I talked a lot about this idea of entering the art world. And I thought I knew what the art world was. And there was this idea that you had to know everyone else working, you had to know what the critical issues of your period were. I used to talk about when artists were getting ready for their first shows, that they were like entering a conversation, and you don't walk into a party, see a conversational group, and just blurt out the topic that's on your mind. You find out what they're talking about and then join in. And and we spent a lot of time thinking about professionalization of art practice, teaching artists to be more business-like in the way they understood themselves. And the Roberta Smith article that inspired this panel, she talks a lot about this resistance to professionalization, to this idea of if you start seeing what you do as production, you talk about what you do as a practice, there's this lowering of the temperature. There is always a sense of disingenuousness. What am I shaping myself into? One of the good things about having been around for a while is most of the artists who I'm close to hit a certain early midlife crisis when they realize they can no longer make art for other people. They have to do things for themselves, their heart, their vision. Then there's a whole world of artists who we admire greatly, who never made work for any other reason but to please themselves. And what is this dialogue between insider, outsider, between people who are looking at the system of the art world and trying to strategize, and those people who have a blissful disregard for it? When I pulled this group of artists and writers together, I was thinking of folks who have always shown a strong independence of spirit, an inspiring independence of spirit. And often it's just been in one-on-one conversations and other things that I hear that they've told students, where there's a sense of the rallying cry that you have to make art for yourself. The rest of the world has to disappear at some point. So anyway, that is the basic rubric we're going to bring together. We're going to start with Marilyn Minter. I had the great pleasure of being one of the two curators, along with the brilliant Alyssa Arthur, to work on Marilyn's retrospective. I always joke with Marilyn. When I gave people their first shows, you always have that joke of like, oh, and one day I'm going to be curating your retrospective, honey. Only in the case of Marilyn Minter did that actually come true. And then Laura Hoptman, who I have admired as a curator from the time I was a critic to the time I was a colleague. We have a regular dialogue. And actually, we had a relatively long phone call last week, and she took this thematic in ways I could not predict, which is exactly what I count on Laura Hoptman for. And then Lonnie Holley is, most of you who know me know that I'm music obsessed, and that my mind functions, things enter my heart and soul via music. And I have a very old car, and I have a car CD player. And I've had Lonnie Holley's Myth CD, which was that the last CD? As my car CD for the last 8 weeks. So I feel like Lonnie Holley's voice is in my head when I sleep, which has been a really informative way. But right now, we're going to start with individual artist presentations and then go into a group discussion. And right now, Marilyn Minter.
Wow, thank you, Bill. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, so we're gonna this is Bill asked me to do this. I'm really honored to be on this panel, by the way. Thank you for inviting me with Lonnie and my God, Laura, who I've known for years. I'm really old, so that happens. I took these photos of my mother in 1969, and Bill asked me to, wrong way. Bill asked me to show work that no one liked when I first did it. And and this was the first time, I was like 20 years old, and I'm from the deep South. I talk like this. And my mother was a drug addict, and so I come from a pretty dysfunctional family, but I didn't know it at the time because I was in South Florida, which is the land of no parents. And anyone who's from Florida, it's the Florida man, Florida woman. There's a reason for that. And I was just take a mom, and my brothers and I have no idea what you see when you see these pictures. So when I took them to my school, which is a very romantic school in Gainesville, Florida, the head of the department, they wanted us to show, our proof sheets. So I showed these, and the other students were like, "Oh my God, that's your mother," and it was like, I felt waves of shame coming over me, because I didn't know that, and my brothers and I look at these pictures now, and we don't know what you see, because this is all we knew. This is our mom, and this was before Oprah and before TMI, and no one talked about anything. This is the deep South. And so that was my first experience with these photos, and I just put them away until 1995. And this next body of work was when I first moved to New York, and this was in 1976. And I'm going to show you a lot of work, so I'm going to go pretty fast. This was the high point of photorealism, and I thought, I was really interested in conceptual photorealism. This is how I thought of it. And I would make these paintings of objects that I thought, were discordant, to be a piece of 2x4 on a linoleum floor. I thought it was an aggressive piece of 2x4 and this kind of beautiful floor. And I also thought, I'm a genius. I'll just make these, I'm going to paint photography. So I actually thought about I was a photography major, so I actually thought that I'll work from my own photos. And I always had the skill level, so I was just, making use of it. And I was trying to find, because when you have, it's a lot of the times if you're a photo realist, it's about technical masturbation, and it's really easy to go there. And I actually, knew that wasn't enough. You had to have content. So I thought, well, I'm going to take pictures of these black and white photos, and then I had made paintings in the same room, so I thought, everyone's going to get that. And then I made spills on the floor and scuff marks, and so the gallery dealers would come over and they'd say, "Yeah, you're a photorealist, but you're really boring." And it's true, and so nobody wanted it. And I made these black and white photos. I painted these 8x10 black and white photos, but I made them just slightly bigger, and I left this raw canvas. And so I thought I was so smart, and no one liked it at all. And I got turned down by everybody. So it wasn't like, Bill was talking about it, we were own little worlds. It wasn't like I was living in bliss. I just didn't have a choice in the matter, and I knew that, of course I knew about strategies, and I looked at art all the time. I'm addicted to looking at other art. But if people were, I knew somewhere I had something to say, but you can't, people you can't force anybody to do anything. So I had no choice, you know. I wish I could say, oh, it was because I was a purist, but I taught. I made enough money by teaching, and so you know, I could do my ideas. I had enough. I was just slightly marginalized, but I had enough to keep going. So I had this idea to make a TV commercial, because I was like slightly getting known in these days, and I didn't have I sort of had a burgeoning career because my first show was at White Columns, and he was notorious for showing first artists like Ashley Bickerton and people. Oh,
John Curran,
John.
Felix.
No, I was thinking of the ones even before that who were just hot. Meyer Weissman.
Yeah.
Just so hot, you know, and Neo Geo, yeah, you were, and so it was a big deal, and so I wanted to. I was on this board, and they were talking about how to get people. Actually, it was the New Museum Board. Forgot. Marcia Tucker was talking about how we could get, and I was listening. I'm painting with the radio on all the time, and I was listening to these ads for shows on NPR, and that's the only place they advertised. So I thought, oh, you know, when I saw that Bruce Nauman video of the clown jumping up and down, going no, 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 and the New Museum had a window, and I thought they should get Bruce Nauman to do a commercial and put it on, you know, regular television. And I brought that up, and everyone said, this is a ridiculous idea. So I said, well, I'll make one. So here's my commercial. And I made those paintings, and I traded it because I had no money. I made these paintings.
In which
I'll tell you in a minute.
in which our effort in the Middle East collapses.
Let me ask you just to take a break for a second. We've got to take a quick break, and I'll come back and let you continue that thought when we continue our conversation with Henry Kissinger and James Webb in a moment.
So, oh yeah, I'll just say this is a combination of
microphone.
a bunch of.
That's
They were on
that's
Nightline,
decent.
as
But see, you
Arsenio
do
Hall
that.
and David
You ain't finished saying.
Letterman.
Well, we gotta take commercial. Take commercial.
Already?
We'll come
I
right
won't
back,
say
and,
the
and,
commercial.
and our mothers will be out.
But the way I made it work is I traded for all the production values. So how much do you think a commercial, 30 seconds on David Letterman cost in 1989? Yeah, now I'm a starving artist, right? It was only $1,800. So what I did was I took the money. I was showing with a couple of different galleries, and they gave me money to put ads in art magazines, or they bought ads in art magazines, and I used that money to produce this, and the commercial, and I traded with all my producers, like I traded with the editor, etc., to with these paintings. They were, I made 110 of them. I call them foodborne, and I put it on late night TV because there were all these ads for. In those days, there were ads for escort services, late night TV. It was always 1-900 call this number, and mine was Y100 food porn. So that was that body of work that nobody paid any attention to. And then the next body of work, well, I should preface it by saying that I just had seen a Mike Kelly show, which I thought was just brilliant, and it was stuffed animal sculptures and stuffed animal paintings and candles on a table all melted, and it looked like banners from high school made out of felt, and I thought, this is like mall art. This is like a 13-year-old girl's bedroom, and there was a decoupage bureau drawer with Mike Kelly's picture under the glass, and it was decoupaged lipsticks, mouths and eyes, just like some young kid would do, a 13-year-old, 12-year-old. And I thought, wow, if a woman artist made this work, nobody'd give her the time of day. But Mike Kelly was this brilliant intellectual from California, I thought, and I was walking home from Metro Pictures, I thought, what subject matter have women never touched? And this was in 1989, and I just finished the food porn, and I thought, oh, I'll do porn. Women never really touched that, but I did know about 2 artists. I didn't know about anybody else but Betty Tompkins. I didn't know Betty at all. I just knew her on the street, but I didn't know. I knew Carol Lee Schneeman, and I knew Judy Bernstein. And I thought, yeah, but they're so softcore. I got to go for cum shots. I got to go hardcore. And I really did think, since I was always a feminist, I was thinking, well, there are no politically correct fantasies. And I knew that to be true. And I also thought it is time for women to make images for their own pleasure and their own production and their own amusement. And I didn't understand why everyone didn't think like this. I really, really believed that everyone thought like this, but I was wrong. And I got thrown out of the art world, and I was considered a traitor to feminism. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I thought everything I was doing was not trying to be provocative. I thought it was funny. I called this piece "The Singers." And I was just I wasn't taking images that turned me on. I was taking images that I thought were funny and compelling. And my question was, does the author change the meaning? Because if woman artist is doing this, does it change the meaning? It was all about people sort of having a good time, I thought. And nobody was being exploited. And I was really getting beat up in the sense that I got excoriating reviews in the Times. And Bill's acts like, oh, I didn't even care. Ha! I was devastated. There was a handful of artists that really supported me, and that's how I survived. And Katie Nolan, Jack Pearson, Larry Clark, Chris Wool, they loved what I was doing. So but I knew it only in the back of my mind because it was so toxic because of the political correctness that no one could really defend me. So I was feeling so beat up, so I started beating up my paintings. But I actually got rid of the dot screen at this point and went right back to making paintings of, because I really hated I hated not communicating, and I saw I wasn't communicating. So I thought, well, I'm going to start making images that everybody knows exist, but you never see it. And this was a woman growing out her armpit hair. So that's an armpit. And I thought, okay, I'll just take the photos and make images from them, make these paintings. Or pulling your socks down and having lines in your legs. And then that sort of people started paying attention to the work again. But it was a nice, it was okay. It was just like getting myself back in the art world. But this is the interesting thing, is that when I showed, this is when I was in a show at the Drawing Center, and it was the woman that runs the Hammer.
Annie Philbin.
She said, well, you can't put anything on the wall. Linda Jablonski was doing these readings at the Drawing Center. She said, well, I want you to do an installation for me, but you can't really take down the drawing. So I said, well, I have these photos I shot in 1969. Maybe I can just make them really big and put them on top of the drawings. So I showed the photos of my mom for the first time. And everybody all of a sudden blew their mind seeing those photos. And they said, I think it was like, well, she must be a serious artist because she comes from dysfunction. So what a cliche, right? But cliches are true, Kittens are cute. And every cloud has a silver lining. And I do talk about it this way because I do believe women are, there's so many women that have really hot careers when they're over 60. That, what occurred to me that, if you're slightly marginalized, maybe Lonnie will agree with me, if you're slightly marginalized, you were still hungry. So you see all these really famous women artists like Helen Frankenthaler, and now she's getting her due, it really feels like. Or I remember Louise Bourgeois making the last piece in her retrospective. She was 100 and something, right? It was the week of, and like if you're still not in the hot seat or the white hot art world, you have a pretty good. You're slightly marginalized. You still could have a really good life, because if you like what you do, you're fine. As long as you know. But I know how painful that sounds to all the artists out there. But if you can, because everybody does want to communicate, and you want to have dialogues with your colleagues and your peers, but you're okay, And I sort of felt like I did this whole series on pubic hair because I was seeing all these young girls, what's it called, lasering their pubic hair, and I thought, wow, don't laser, because I plucked my eyebrows all out when I was in the 60s, and they never grew back. So I thought, well, just dye your pubic hair, do whatever you want, but don't laser it. So I said, well, I'll make these beautiful pictures of pubic hair so then people see them again. There's a lot of people in this audience who've never seen pubic hair. And so I took all races and all colors, and then I made this whole series. And I'm still making them, and I love them. And I'm going to finish with this. These are really, really big paintings, and I love them, but no one will buy them. But I have a whole set of them, and they'll see them sooner or later, because everything I've been doing is really like people pay attention to it sooner or later, and now I'm at that age group where they pay attention. So it's this new body work I'm doing is the same kind of thing. I thought, well, this people do buy, so I should say that. So I could make these and sell them and still make these. This is thigh gap, and these are really big paintings. These bathers, but I like the idea of, you always see paintings of women grooming all through art history. The bather and Apollo surprising Daphne in the stream, and I thought, well, women never show other women grooming. So I'm making this whole series of 21st century bathers, and that's going to be in a show in Montpellier, France. But someone thought in France, and that's like the perfect place to do the bathers. So, and I'm doing it with Betty Tompkins. So sooner or later, people do see you, and I think everyone has to, if you want to fit yourself into the vernacular, but you really can't. You really do have to just pay attention to your inner voice, and you'll be fine as an artist. So, thanks.
Thanks. Do you want podium or seat? Seat. Okay.
You want the seat?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can move over to that one then.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Thank you. Here's your water.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Andrew. It's really great to be here back at the new museum. I did time here from 2005 to 2010 with my colleague Massimiliano joining here. I was really intrigued when I got this invitation to serve on this panel, because I was intrigued. I might as well say I was also confused because for me, I've been in this job at the Drawing Center for about a year and a half, but I have to say, for most of my career, I've been looking at drawings. I love drawings. I think they're incredible. Somehow they speak to me as much as other mediums, maybe even more. I have noticed over the years that the drawings that I have loved have been I've been very Catholic in the way I've looked at drawings. I mean, it doesn't matter whether they're self-taught or by self-taught artists or non-self-taught artists, whether they're on an envelope or a piece of a handkerchief like these two that are above my head. And once I got to the Drawing Center, I just felt like, wow, this is the place that I could be sort of, I don't know how to say it, pansexual in my love or something of the drawing medium, and just show, that's the parameter, drawing. And outside of that, it can be anything. So it was exciting to me to start thinking about the questions that Bill posed, that outsider art, the notion of outsider art poses, that the Outsider Art Fair poses, and even Roberta in 2007, how she discussed this notion of professionalization versus non-professionalization. And the way that Roberta made the distinction was that she figured that a kind of professionalization of the art of the art world, or being an artist, meant that you were making work that did something, that addressed problems or issues, that functioned. And that for her, art didn't do that. It needs no justification, it just is. Now I can cop to that, not a problem, but I think art that does something is also art. And which way do I go? And I think that in fact contemporary art has broken that mold time and time again. And when I'm showing you, this is an easy one, I'm sorry, but it says what I mean. Above my right shoulder, your left, is one of the great tattoo artists, one of the great drawers of flash, Christian Warlick. And on the left is Dr. Lacra, a Mexican artist, who is also a tattoo artist. So for those of you who don't, probably everybody knows who Dr. Lacra is, because actually he had a show here, didn't he? He had a show at the Drawing Center as well. Dr. Lacra is an artist, but he is professionally a tattoo artist. So he makes his money doing tattoos and also making drawings, which are sold in galleries and shown in museums. There's a sort of seamlessness between Dr. Lacra's professions. He is a professional tattoo artist and he's a professional artist. And actually there's not very much difference between what he does when he draws on your skin and what he does when he draws on a piece of paper that he can sell. Looking at just juxtapositions like that and like this, two works, one a Shaker gift drawing from 1859 and the other work by Laura Owens dated to 2000. It's in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art. I think it highlights the question of where the line is between so-called outsider art and contemporary art. And I use outsider in the broadest of terms. And with this juxtaposition, I think what I'm cogitating is that it might just be a matter of context, right? I mean, because what makes Laura Owens' drawing a contemporary work of art other than the date? It's that she's appropriated the motif of a Shaker gift drawing and put it in the contemporary art context, because this is a work that is clearly connected to Shaker gift drawings, and maybe not this one specifically, but the kind of that Giving Tree Shaker drawings. There's no doubt about it. You ask Laura and she'll tell you. And what makes hers different is just the way that in the milieu that we see it in. I think. I mean, I'm positing this, and it's something that we could talk about. Here's two examples of work by an artist called Wellman Charlehorn, who lives in New Orleans. For me, I chose these. These were up in the exhibition that just closed at the Drawing Center called The Pencil is a Key. Because when I first saw these works, they're works of contemporary art by any definition, any at all. The only division, the only way that we can look at it in a different way, at least in this case, is in terms of context. And for those of you who are specialists in work by artists who didn't go to art school, or works by artists who make their works outside of some sort of cultural center, then you can argue with me. But for me, it really is. I mean, that's all I can see when I see this. I see this work. Contemporary artists are, like Laura Owens, forever inspired by kinds of work that were not made specifically for an art context, whether it be somebody who's riffing on illustrations in a magazine, or somebody who's riffing on tattoo flash or Shaker gift drawings. On my left, your right, is great work that I think that Bill Arning probably remembers also, work by Keith Mayerson from a series of drawings called Pinocchio the Big Fag that were premiered at the Drawing Center in 1995 in a show that was curated by Ann Philbin. We just mentioned her name before. And clearly, this is Keith's retelling of the Pinocchio fairy tale, except as Pinocchio outing himself and telling his absolute truth, the big liar finally coming out and telling the absolute truth, which is the truth of his homosexuality. The reason why I have it up is that, and juxtaposed with this incredible drawing, that's the drawing for a comic, which is a cover of the first Avengers, where the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, first was first shown. And this is a work that was in an exhibition at the Drawing Center last year, a show called As If, which was about the the idea of invented histories. And it's a work that's in the library of the University of Maryland, the collection of the University of Maryland. If you ever want to see great comics from mid-century, you got to go to the University of Maryland, because weirdly they have this big comics collection. But the reason why I am I'm juxtaposing this is because Keith is clearly looking not necessarily to comics, although he's a comics aficionado, but to illustration, and then taking the language of illustration into this red-hot center of the contemporary art community, I guess, the art world. In a way, as I said before, then it's a matter of context, not necessarily a matter of language. And the Drawing Center, maybe we could say by the same property, that by bringing this wonderful drawing of the cover of the Avengers, original drawing for a comic strip, reproduced comic strip, that we are bringing this great illustrator, this group of John Buscema, John Verpoorten, and Morris Kuramoto together, bringing them into the art context. We are making them contemporary artists, so it works in both ways. If one boundary then is context, another one maybe is usefulness. So it harkens back to what Roberta said in her article, that maybe the divide between fine art and outsider art can be whether or not it was made to accomplish something or just made. These are two amazing works. They're notebooks from Paris from the 1930s. They were made by two pseudonymic artists, one of them called Paul Cochard and the other one called Fanfan. Both of them were incarcerated in the same prison, a very famous prison called Mazas Prison, which was a panopticon. And the reason why I mentioned that is, the panopticon was this great 19th century Enlightenment ideal notion of how prisoners could be rehabilitated during their incarceration. So we don't know whether these two works were made as part of a therapeutic art program or not. So we don't know whether Fanfan and Paul Cochard were compelled to draw these. Did their participation have any impact on their sentences? How were they used? Were these personal or confessional? Were they meant to be shared or not? We don't have any idea. In other words, we have no idea about the intentionality or the use value of this, the uses of this work. This is a great big drawing that we borrowed from Andrew Edlin Gallery, little plug there, by the wonderful artist Valentino Dixon. And I show it to you because it's so awesome, because it's a great looking drawing. And I show it to you to pose the question, is can or can't we see this work as a contemporary drawing just like that, like the Wellman Charlehorns, even if we're not familiar with the circumstances of its making, because the circumstances of this artist's making of this work and many others is so awesome and so incredible that I guess we could say, and I'm looking to Andrew to correct me if I'm wrong, that his claim to fame is not necessarily the drawing, what this drawing looks like, but actually the fact that he made this group of drawings. And just to briefly tell you, and you can Google this because he's famous, and he's famous for this reason. Valentino Dixon was incarcerated in upstate New York, and he was commissioned by somebody who worked at the prison to do is it the 13th hole of does anybody golf here? Augusta National Golf Course. There's a famous hole. And a picture was torn out of a magazine given to Valentino, who was very adept in drawing, and he drew this golf course magnificently, but it also caught his fancy and his attention and his imagination. Not a golfer, didn't care about golf courses, but to him the golf course represented something of an ideal, something of a utopian ideal, and whilst incarcerated, this was something important to Charlehorn, so he began drawing these magnificent imaginary golf courses. And somebody at Golf Digest got wind of it, and there are collectors of golf art. There are probably some here. And there's not that there's anything wrong with that. That's awesome, I think. Anyway, Golf Digest wrote an article about Valentino Dixon. People started buying golf art. Collectors began to buy Dixon's work, and yada, 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 in a positive way. The Innocence Project caught wind of Dixon's situation, and he was exonerated. And now he is a working artist living in upstate New York. Andrew, how old is he? Is he 40? 49. Okay, so he's on the cusp of being a middle-aged artist. 27 years wrongly incarcerated, and because of a drawing or a group of drawings, he was liberated. But I do want to say one other thing, and that of all the artists, living artists with whom we worked at the Drawing Center, we asked 6 or 7 of them to come and give talks, and they were all wonderful. Valentino was the only one that we had to arrange through his agent. I wanted you to know that. These are 2 other works that were both also featured in this last exhibition. And the reason why I put them together is because I want to dilate a little bit on this notion of intentionality. When we look at these 2 works, the only thing that they have in common, one on my right, your left, is Robert de Ruin, the royalist French artist who found himself on the wrong side of the revolution and ended up in the clink after the success of the Jacobins. Juxtaposed strangely with the great Bearsheart, an artist who was incarcerated as a prisoner of war in 1875 after being on the losing end of the Red River War. We did it. It was American soldiers who incarcerated those who were fighting against them in the upper Midwest. And Bearsheart, among other prisoners, started out in Oklahoma and then were marched to St. Augustine, Florida, where they were incarcerated in a stockade that is still being used today to incarcerate kids by ICE. Anyway, looking at these 2 works, both made in the situation where the artist was incarcerated. That's all they have in common. Would anyone in this room question the authenticity of feeling in either one, despite the difference or the quote-unquote sophistication of execution, because it's completely different. It's a generalization, I think, but we're drawn to work by self-taught artists because they seem more direct, more quote-unquote authentic. It's ironic, then, that often acknowledging that essence of the truly felt and the truly expressed is also what might make us devaluate an artist's involvement in the making of a work, particularly a woman artist. This is a work by, and you pronounced her first name differently than I have only in my head. It's the first time I say it aloud, Guo Fengyi, a wonderful artist who left this world in 2010 from Xi'an province in China. You could see a survey of her we're not going to have 500, but she had an oeuvre of almost 500 drawings. She started in late middle age and died as not so elderly, so she had about 20 years of working, and at that time she did these works on paper. I do have to give a shout out to my friend and colleague Massimiliano Joni, because although I could have seen her work at Andrew Edlin Gallery, the first time I saw Guo Fengyi's work was in Korea at a biennial that Massimiliano, right? Am I correct? Did you have her in there? Yeah. At Massimiliano's. She died that year, but she was alive and knew that she was a part of that biennial, which is very interesting. Subsequently, he had a display of this work at the Venice Biennial as well. So what do I mean by this? Devaluing the artist's involvement in the making of the work, and especially women. There's something about self-taught art, maybe this authenticity thing, that makes us question its intentionality. The literature on the artist Guo Fengyi, without fail, and there's not much, but there's some, identifies her drawings as a result of visions that she had during her own Qigong, because she was a Qigong maestra, or meditation practice. And it's not mentioned, but emphasized, because the emphasis is that with the idea that the work was created elsewhere and given to the artist, much like the literature on Hilma af Klint. Actually, it's not dissimilar, that there are questions about whether af Klint was actually an artist because her inspiration was coming from elsewhere, some spirit or something. Now, and it's the same argument that people dilate on when they talk about Guo Fengyi. And this is a very, I can't explain it, maybe others better than me can explain it, but it's something that's typical also of women when we look at self-taught women artists or women artists who are so-called visionaries. How many do you mind if I ask how many artists are in the room? Yeah, okay. Usually, thank you, New Museum, for having a lot of. Can I ask you, just to, don't you have visions? Where do your ideas come from? I mean, what's the difference? I mean, seriously, whether you name your spirit animal or you don't, it's just, what's the difference? In my opinion, it was fascinating and also made me angry as the more I read, like, she's a nut, but she has her inspiration from her mental illness, or that's the old Kusama line. That's what Kusama decided. Oh, that sounded good, so Kusama says it too. So I mean, preparatory exercises, whether you're going to go into a trance or not to mention elusive substances, and we can go into that as well, are common tools for artists to make them use speak, I believe. So I don't see the difference. And at the Drawing Center, we've embarked upon a series of exhibitions, including the two that I mentioned earlier, As If, which included work by self-taught artists and taught artists, juxtaposed with no divisions. The Pencil is a Key, which did the same, and the upcoming Gofing survey that will put drawings by this self-taught artist in an art context, just an art context, no other context, just art. And in this way, we are building on our history at the Drawing Center, beginning with Anne Philbin, where we had magnificent exhibitions, important pivotal exhibitions of Plains ledger drawings, of tattoo flash, and of shaker gift drawings, among other things, tantric watercolors, all kinds of medical illustrations, as well as botanical illustrations as well, all of which are examples that are the way that our institution continues to create contemporary exhibitions that are relevant to the world outside of our galleries without necessarily exhibiting work that was made today, and without necessarily exhibiting work at the red hot center of the art world. Although I'm so proud that we showed Marilyn Minter. That's her name, sure. And that's what I've got.
And now we're going to show a video by Lonnie Holley.
I went to sleep anticipating on dreaming. I fell deeper, 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 deeper in a dream. And I dreamed that I woke up, in a fucked up America. Pain was going so bad. Camels was crying. I woke up in a fucked up America. Clients, that had lasted for years was now causing tears. And walls, all about the wall, all about the wall, all dream.
So, Lonnie, this was shot in Birmingham, right?
Yeah, in different places.
Yeah. But you
My
was
studio space too.
yeah.
Birmingham and Bessemer.
And Bessemer also,
Where
where
we chose a few places.
and you were talking a little bit about how the community you had there with Joe Minter was like part of what your art making activity was being like this sort of communal thing with Joe and the other artists in your area.
I think if you looked at that, there were quite a few other artists. Art was mixed in with the making of this video. What I tried to do anytime I'm doing it is be as one would say, a universal messenger. This mothership of ours actually need us now more than ever because of what time it is and the hidden places. I was just talking to James earlier about some things that had happened even before I was born. I'm working, but in a sense I'm still behind on what probably need to be exposed as far as what we can expose in our art, or what we can do, or how we can be inspiration to others to be free in their expressions. I think most of all, I've seen myself in the ocean of thoughts, trying to swim to the shorelines in order to just bring about the information that's necessary to be saying there are ways that we can survive.
Because I think you said in an interview about this video that it wasn't just you today who was waking up in a fucked up America, but you saw for generations back people had been waking up in a fucked up America, that it's not about an immediate crisis, but about an ongoing situation.
I think sometimes I have to laugh at just the concept because people get it wrong when they hear me say I woke up in a fucked up America. Because he can't use no profanity, you know what I'm saying? He shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Haven't we been good to him? Haven't we been good to them? Who is them? And who is heaven? And where is heaven? And why is so many being paid to keep away from heaven, but go to hell? So many people could tell us easily in a mentally fashion, go to hell, I'm not concerned about that you're doing. Like the young lady was saying, for her works, it took so long for people's here to see the images or appreciate what she was doing as an artist. And she was doing what everybody do. I mean, she was showing what everybody has in their life as a part of them. Yeah. I try not to be an artist that have any intentions to hide anything. I think my music now, and because of where my music has taken me and how it's allowing me to travel more around the world, and that scares me. to be done travel one place, and then 6 months later, it's on fire. Volcanoes are erupting, or fires in Australia. We was just there not even 3 months ago, and the place is on fire. I've just got through singing about it. It scares me because I don't want to say I'm a prophet, because I told my mother I didn't want to be in the ministry. I didn't want to be a preacher. I told my grandmother I didn't want to be a minister. I didn't want to end up being a grave digger like my grandmama, or didn't want to end up being on the landfill all the time. But I don't mind going there, because my thing of seeing what landfills are doing, and we don't even see it. They are swelling like a belly from infield, and that goes in. Think about this bottle full of trash, garbage and debris. And the more you put water in there, drip by drip by drip, the more this here trash and debris is going to fill up until it's going to explode out the top, which we have called ourselves cylinder. I think all of my art has tried to, in a sense, Dr. King spoke about moral value. What is the moralness, or what is my reasons? Why do I still do the same thing that I was doing at 5 years old, now that I'm getting ready to turn 70 years old? Why am I doing the same thing? Why am I going up and down the creeks and the ditches? Why am I concerned about, I'm not chasing the worms any longer. I'm not trying to trap the tadpoles or trap, you understand?
Yeah.
The crawfish.
Yeah.
I am now older and much, much wiser.
Yeah.
I don't mind getting down on my knees in those ditches and creeks and things. But I've already examined the broken glass and the broken debris that's coming out of the city down to the particleness of its runoff that have to be affecting our ocean bottom once it drains into it. I'm the type of artist that always have to come up here, be up on top of the big apple. I love the apple.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't want to come up here and always act like the worm in the apple.
When I announced who this panel was going to be with here, a few people pointed out that we are all people in our professional lives who have a relatively of long histories, and I like.
You were old?
We've
Speak for yourself.
We have survived several changes of the weather intellectually, and that we do have something to say about what's required to have a multi-decade practice. I'm going to turn to Marilyn on this, because Marilyn, I always think, is the youngest person who's had a 37, 38-year career I know. And if you walk into her studio, which I do with some regularity, there's this sea of young people painting there that are helping her out. And she is the youngest one, and she's always the one talking about the new record and the new fashions and this. What wisdom can you impart in terms of the changes in the way the art world has understood this dialogue? In terms of, like, when we started off, it was the East Village, in which this idea of graffiti and this real direct communication was prioritized. And then we survived the heavy theory years, where everything was a philosophical treatise. And now we're in some other stage. What lessons have we learned from the decade after decade changes in what's required of artists?
Well, wisdom is really knowing what you don't know. And I've always felt like I had a vision, and I feel the same way you do. I had a vision, and I was never the person that was the most likely to succeed. I've fucked up everything, and I just had no choice in the matter. And I always tell my students, don't be an artist unless you have no choice. It's not like I could fall back on being a doctor or a lawyer. You know, I can't even spell. And there's a kind of unmeasured intelligence in the creative process. And an unmeasured intelligence is always the weird intelligence in the culture. And if you just have my theory has been, if you just have a couple of people that you can talk to, that's sort of enough. You know, even if it's just the people you went to school with. So those are the people that you're in grad school with. If you're in grad school, or you have Joe Minter, and you have other people that they can hear you. There's a real dialogue going on. That's enough to give you impetus. I believe this, that if an artist listens to their inner voice, they're fine. It's when you try and fit talent is everywhere. But I think that a lot of no one wants to hear this, but nothing's changed. I really don't feel anything's changed. It's there's a lot more people buying art. That's pretty much it. Maybe there's a lot more artists, but most 90% of it is just terrible. 99% is just terrible. But it's okay too, It's like, I believe in this kind of, everything comes out in the end the way it's supposed to. If you have something to say, it will be seen. Lonnie's seen. Outsider artists are seen. You can't miss that, Someone's going to see you. And even if you get discovered hundreds of years later, like George Latour or Henry Darger, it's still information. And why you're asking, why do I think like this? I've always been really curious, and I never want to be that person that's back in the old days. Mm-hmm. I hate those artists, and they exist everywhere, and my age group especially. And it's scary. Yeah. I don't want. I remember when I was in my 29, and an artist that I admired said, "Oh, did you see the Jack Goldstein at the Metro Pictures? This is so great." And she said, "Well, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm not going to pay attention to these picture artists." And I'd never heard anyone say anything like that. I've always just been really interested in the creative process and what people are thinking about. And I hope I never become that person. Yeah. Back in the good old days when Brooklyn was blah blah, or Soho was,
Yeah.
It's all progress.
Yeah. I don't think you will ever turn into that type of person. I think what we are doing is more of levels of motivation. Levels of motivation with activities for participation actually is not just one artist, he or she. It's us all. And if we think about what are we trying to say in America with our artistic skills, with the properties or whatever, it was just only people like myself and Mr. Thornton Dow who had grown up, and I knew I grew up I'm the seventh of my mother's 27 children out of her 32 pregnancies. There was never no time to just get up out of the bed and not do something with your brain. I call it brain smithing. And there was choices that we had to make every day. My grandmother actually dug graves, and she dug graves until she was in her 80s. And she also went from home, every morning on the way to the graveyard, she would go by the city landfill and scrap out of it as much as she can take along, stickly made brick and wreck whatever she could out of that fiery pit. And when I got into her life around 14 years old, coming from Alabama Industrial School for Negro Children, where I had been there and in an institution where you pick cotton and you plant it, you learn agriculture and you learn it well, or either you got your ass whooped. We're all grown up here. Let's not sugarcoat anything. When you got home, and it was something to just return to the creek and the ditch that I had been used to playing in, just before I was interrupted and thrown into this prison camp for children. So these ideas of what I use and all the different stuff that you all saw on the movie, why do you collect all of this? Somebody says, shit, man, you got all this shit around you, man. You know what I'm saying? And I had a friend, his name was Amir Baraka. He said, in order for you all to put that shit on the wall, they're gonna have to take that shit down. So my thing is, that shit was the truth.
Yeah. You're making a picture of the time you live in.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm making a picture of
That's
the
what
times
you're
I live
doing.
in. And I think that's what artists have to do.
And
I mean, that's the art I respond to.
And I think that's what the students need.
Yeah.
I don't think they need it. I don't think they need you to barbecue a piece of meat and not put no hot sauce or barbecue sauce on it. I think they come to dinner and you should have collard greens, black-eyed peas. You're listening at me down there on the
I'm
corner,
getting
right?
hungry, yeah.
You understand what
I'm
I'm
from
saying?
Virginia. My husband's
No,
from
no.
Alabama.
No, but I'm just
I'll
simply
make you
saying,
collard greens.
I'm so thankful that you take the time to recognize that those humans that's in prison have a brain also. Going all the way back to the 18 and the 1700s. What these humans were trying to say, can I express myself about my situation that I'm incarcerated about? And then all of you people out there that deal with it, I'm gonna give you a thumbs up. You all deal with it each and every moment of your life. Ain't nobody giving y'all no paycheck to do this. But if you all are dealing with art and you're dealing with it to the point, I think somebody needs to write about the hand that have to deal with it. Matt and I were discussing what it was I gonna say. My brain allowed me to have this big well of thought or ocean of thought. In that ocean of thought, my music comes from it. In that same ocean of thought, my art comes from it. In that same ocean of thought, I lay down in that frame, and I hope that I wake up from it.
Now, you were exhibiting as an artist for a while before you started making CDs and music. And that seems to me like reaching outside to a different audience. A lot of my friends who are music people more than art people have seen you at South by Southwest. And when I said you made visual art too, they're like, Lonnie Holley makes art. And then with Marilyn, she did all this work where she would do like Tom Ford ads and somehow insinuate herself into magazines and the places where people who are not looking for art will get a visual image. Can you both talk a little bit about reaching outside into contexts which are not gallery museum system? And like when you perform at South by Southwest and you talk to a bunch of young rock and roll fans, Is that conversation different than you have when you talk about your visual artwork?
You all got to realize, I was too busy doing my work. I wasn't thinking about what you all were going to put in the magazine about me. Even though I knew that I had to go home, I had to either kneel before my grandmama or sit on the bed beside her and say, this is my accomplishment, Mama. And hope that, and then my mama had an opportunity to come to my environment in Birmingham, Alabama. And I had 2 acres of art. I was hurt again. I was so hurt when they just bulldozed most of my work down and didn't give me an opportunity to explain it. It wasn't that I was trying to look for a frame for everything. It wasn't that I was looking for a pedestal for every piece. But if I could have just given explanation to why I did that. Why did you do that with them children, Mr. Holley? As the Sandman. Why were you doing such strong pieces all the way down the timeline? I've been up and down the timeline so much in my life. And I've learned to appreciate as much as I can. I'm scared because I know I gotta die, but I'm scared that somebody in this digital age, I call her Cold Titty Mama. She sit right here in front of me. This is Cold Titty Mama. Yes, it is. You can close her up and she won't say a thing. You can punch it. But Cold Titty Mama will not do anything if I spill this water on her or if I cry too many tears on her. Cold Titty Mama means computer technology management. This is our new mama, y'all. Whether you all want her to be or not, this is your new mama. And if we don't learn to appreciate her, learn now. Mama and them say, you ain't learned your lesson yet. You can keep on doing something over and over and over again. Mama would quickly say, don't say nothing. Just watch them. And they'll end up going and boom, fall in a hole. They'll end up going and wear out their shoes. They'll end up doing something that they'll have to come right back to Mama and say, Mama, Grandmama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it that way. We as humans on this mothership, we are going to all have to come together quickly. Too many volcanoes going off. It's too many, it's things finna happen to America. Things finna happen to the coastlines, especially because they are too moist, too much water. Damage is going to erode the coastline. Caves are going to start crumbling apart. And this is where the downfall, everybody, nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. I don't want to take up too much work because you wanted her to say something. Yeah. Come on now, you say something.
Hard to follow you because you're so profound. And I love that you're talking in metaphor about everything. And this is a very scary time. And I'm really grateful that there are, I was
you're talking about Planned Parenthood maybe now.
Pardon?
You're talking about what you're doing for your activism now.
I've always been an activist too, but since I was 16. And I see that I was in I worked in civil rights at 16, but I saw that morph into anti-Vietnam War because my generation was the ones going to Vietnam and dying. And I see these kids that are in schools doing drills for shooting. They're the ones that are dying. So it's that generation. Those are the ones that are gonna. I think these teenagers really. It's not even generation. Is it like X or it's Z? They're gonna. I think they're gonna save us. You know, because it's the. They really are not. They're not gonna let the another 4 years of people paying no attention to climate, crisis. I mean, I love the rebellion extinction. I love these people that are activists, and I've been lately doing it's a show right now, and I really love this show. The last 6 months, myself and Yasmin Wahi, Lori Simmons, and Rebecca Ropol and Gina Nani put the show together called Abortion is Normal. And it really upset a lot of people saying abortion is normal because they drank the Kool-Aid about that toxic word abortion, when abortion's been going on for millennia. And the right wing has turned it toxic because it is a normal. People have been doing it forever, and they're trying to make it illegal, and they're just basically trying to hold on to the patriarchy. It was after Alabama's abortion bans, and we have a show up right now at Eva Pressenhuber, and then it's moving to Arsenal, and it's a pretty good show. And artists, really well-known artists, are giving really inexpensive work trying to raise money for Planned Parenthood. So I mean, it helps me when I see. It helps me, you talking about it. It helps me when I see. I can't just watch this. I have to do something. Even, I just want everybody to get involved. Even if, all you do is, it's really helpful to just drive somebody to go vote. Otherwise, I'll go crazy if just like watch the planet blowing up, like you said, the volcano. And everyone can do some little thing, I think that.
I think to sit in between the both of you all, you representing the incarcerated humans, are trying to show a picture of a weeping spirit, and you representing those that need to understand even better. I think now that you, again, Cold Titty Mama is by your side. All you gotta do is treat her right, and now she's capable of giving you the capability of a web page, a website, okay? Dig where I'm coming from. Because if we are looking for any futurism to come about, here she is. Can you dig where I'm coming from? Because if we, and I don't like to be battling over slave ship. I snuck off the slave ship. I snuck off the slave ship in my imagination just to see us sitting here today. Not to say I wanted to get into no battle about my ancestors' spilled blood. The whole thing about history to me is that we are having data banks full of information. And I told Bill, William Arnett, Matt Arnett's father, I told William Arnett, I said, let's talk about preservation for 50,000 years on this earth, 50,000 years worth of information that somebody could sit down to and they can actually be motivated by it. They can actually be driven and to do more. I'm not up here trying to get you to leave your wallet at home and then go out in the street and try to rally like a friend of mine. Her name was Jane Fonda. No, her name is Jane Fonda. I'm saying, Jane. Matt told me, say, did you see Jane going to jail the other day? I said, going to jail?
Every Friday.
And then her daughter, her granddaughter, a daughter and a son. So Jane's grandchildren, all of them is getting these rubber handcuffs.
I know.
Just for the sake of our environment. But to know that the same people you meet you meet going up, you also meet those people going down. And that comes to you, because I appreciate you being who you are. But my first part of my life, I didn't know really what art were. I didn't have an education. All I knew, I was doing these sculptures, and I was thinking about what I had either saw in National Geographic or encyclopedias about our geographics and how we live in. And those things ended up, the first exhibit was a show called More Than Land and Sky in 1982 that was put on by the Smithsonian. And that was 64 cities of the 13 original colonies. I got a letter from the Lords of London. This is how I got my start. Well, this is how I learned to appreciate myself. When I got the letter from the Lords of London, my mother handed it to me. And she said, "You got this letter from the Lord."
I love it.
Do you hear me? That's the way Mama said it. She said, "You got this letter
From the Lord.
I said, "Mama, you don't get no letter from the Lord." And she was like smiling all over herself. I think my sister Betty had told her it came from the Lords of London. And Mama just didn't know how to pronounce London.
No.
But she just,
The Lord.
He got it from the Lord. So I got my letter from the Lord.
So I think actually we should be opening up to questions for the last little bit. Do we have a microphone, or should people just come up? Yeah. Okay, so there's a microphone over here so we can get it recorded. So just raise your hand with questions. I know there's a lot to talk about here.
There's this lady in the orange
Okay, yeah.
blouse.
I don't know I was going to go first, but thank you. This was wonderful on many counts. But I'm struck, I'll start with where Lonnie landed, which is kind of what is the letter of the Lord you're waiting for. And it strikes me that there is there's something in common that reinforces what I think each of you are trying to put forward about it's got to come from within, and you got to keep your inner voice because there are all these doubters around. But there is a difference in the nature of what affirmation you want. I don't know if it makes a difference. I mean, to me, the biggest problem has to do with notions of education and the idea that there are certain things that are instilled in people who see themselves as artists more in the last 30 to 40 years, and I'm involved in education as well. But that there are things that happen in education that work to instill in artists an expectation and take them away from their inner voice. And I feel like it's the Marilyns and the Lonnies, you guys, Laura, that
We just have to speak louder.
you got to speak louder and keep it real.
Well, I remember seeing a painting in I guess it was 80s. And it was Sigmar Polka, and the name of the painting was "God Told Me to Paint This Corner Black." And he did, and that's the name of the painting, and that's what the painting was about, that corner being black. And I thought, this is great. This is everything. But I know that there are people that are intellectuals who make art who are truly academic, and they're very smart, and some of them are really good too.
Yeah. Laura?
I mean, I think one of the things that we see in this panel, but also I think it's very crucial to this discussion, is that there's a big difference between making art and consuming it, between reception and production. And the notion of outsider art, if you will, is purely a matter of reception. In fact, and for artists, the point is to make it, not to bother so much about how your work is received or consumed or anything else. And I think that that's the biggest divide. I mean, I'm a consumer, I'm not a maker, so are you. And we can only comment from the outside. We can't comment from the inside. And when you're looking at it from the inside, all this kind of language that we use you don't need it. It's not necessary. It's only necessary for us to be able to define you. I think it's interesting.
As I look at the materials that some humans sought out to do their works on, somebody like Bill Trailer or some of the examples of the prisoners scrapping up a piece of paper or getting a new pair of shoes and tearing up the box a little bit at a time, or having just to utilize what was there. This is what I think. This is what we are exempling, and I think it's going to be more of a great show, because the showing at each gallery that mostly if we've been walking in New York and we've been going to other places in other parts of the world and seeing some of the works that is on exhibits in different parts of the world. And I remember my grandmama used to say, "You're gonna eat that hog from the rooty to the tooty." You're gonna eat it all. So that means we're going to consume all of it. And we're going to actually have to give definition to whatever it were. That's history. That's history. What did that artist have to do it with? Why did that artist do it with that material? No matter what the age that he or she drew their inspiration from, they did it with the material that was at hand.
Yeah, the work tells you what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the art actually tells you what to do. You just listen to it.
For those of us that teach or have taught, I always use Alvin Baltrop as an interesting example, because there's a career survey of his on view currently at the Bronx Museum. And the museum I used to be at did the first American retrospective, but he didn't show in his life. He had one show in the lobby of a theater company, and he made work for years and years. But then he ended up on the cover of Art Forum 11 years after his death. And I'm always like, okay, pretend I'm the devil, and I'm offering you a deal. You can guarantee you'll be seen as important after you're gone. You get your whole life to make the work in private, and then you'll get the prizes later, or you get the prizes now, but your work will be forgotten 11 years after your death. Which one do you take? And it's a mean thing to ask a student, but it's also really interesting because it cuts to that fundamental: why are you doing this? What does this mean to you? And that's ultimately the question we're looking at: is what does this mean to people, and why does it mean what it does?
What do they answer?
But they actually get really mad at me and then give me bad evaluations. But usually they have some revelation at the end of it. Any more questions? In the back?
Hi.
Hi.
You guys are all inspirational, so thank you for having us here. So my question is, and I asked myself this question in my head, so hopefully it comes out okay. But I'm an art lover. I'm not a creator, unless I doodle. It's not really pretty, but I'm I'm not an artist. I'm a consumer. How do you see the buyer and the consumer evolving in time? I hear from you, like, you know, my art has been misinterpreted. I really solely did it because I thought it was funny, and people, you know, reacted really harshly, and, you know, that kind of scolded me for a bit of time there, but I bounced back. What is our responsibility as the consumer, and the responsibility of artists to really meet in the middle and understand each other? Perhaps it's with a computer, called Mama. How do you see that evolving through time?
Could I say something first? I know we all got to get ready to get out of Dodge. But the thing about, do we actually see ourselves participating in the activities of life? When we are the caretakers of anything from one generation to the next, then that's where, if you look at all the art, and I really despise having to see hurricanes and tornadoes and twisters come through and tear whole communities and destroy our industries and our identification of our growth. And we have no way to save these different things or stuff. Or we get to the point that we are working so hard outside of our realm of respect until we can't look back and say, I respect that I am the keeper. We are chosen in life, and I don't like to always throw up the, well, the Spirit chose you to do this, Spirit chose you to do that. When you came out of your mother's womb, or your father's blah, blah, you know what I'm saying, you were put on the timeline. You was put on a journey, and therefore, you, just like you say, I love collecting, I love all of this, but you should say, I love being the keeper, because you have to clean it, you have to dust it, you have to make sure that it don't get knocked off the shelf by some stray cat. Can you dig what I'm saying? Or your growing kid.
What he says, I totally agree. You're the keeper.
You're the keeper.
You gotta take care of it.
That's it.
It's not that easy.
That's not.
Okay. I think we have time for one final question. Down front.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for being so inspirational and so really motivational. And actually, it's more than question, it's more like a rhetorical thought. Maybe that when we talk about professionalization of art, and especially in this context of contemporary, what defines contemporary art versus outsider art, I think it's also important to outline all this whole system of distribution, let's say, if we say, that becomes, which system becomes more and more influential and important in defining actually what might be art in general. So I think we artists might talk as loud as possible, but without the support system like this today, it would be impossible to voices to be heard. So thank you for this, and I think thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for letting me host this tonight, and Andrew Edlin and the folks at the New Museum for making this a reality. This is the type of discussion, I'm happy to know that they've recorded it, because there's stuff I need to digest over time here too. Lonnie, thank you for being here.
Thumbs up for Mother Universe.
Thanks. Laura, Marilyn, thanks.